seems to be kind of in a similar boat as us. They played at South Florida and at Sanford. Both games they got beaten up pretty good. Of course, South Florida, you saw on TV last, I think Saturday, up at Florida State, and played them tough actually for a while themselves, but FAMU's starting to play a little bit better. You can tell they're getting used to the new staff. Coach Alex Woods is the new head coach there. He's changed a lot of things around, trying to really create some stability and get them to the point where they can be the Florida A&M of old. I've always said that I was concerned about somebody really good getting that Florida A&M job because there's just so much talent in that state that you got to figure that it won't be long before those guys get it going down there. Hopefully they don't get it going this Thursday because I'm sure that'll be their goal now that they're getting into their conference after having played 2 non-conference games. Okay. Questions?
After your first 2 games, how do you, especially for, I guess, for the freshmen you got playing, how do you really mention to them, they maybe from high school programs that don't really lose, and then they, have a good win first game and have a tough one this past week? Right. How do you explain that to them and get them ready for the next?
I don't know if you do. They were there too, and they get a chance to see some of the what went on. We got beaten pretty soundly. The one thing I can tell you is that you just kind of keep working at this thing. You find ways to improve yourself. You try to correct the errors, try to get better at some of the things that you didn't do so well the previous game, and at that point then you let the chips fall where they may. I do think though that we can play better. I think we can play a lot better. It was a situation where we kind of got going in a downward spiral and we couldn't catch ourselves. We couldn't seem to get it turned. Once we did get it turned, I guess halftime is what really kind of got us slowed down a little bit. After we got going a little bit, we did play better. So hopefully we play more like what we played the second half.
How much do you go back and talk about the good things from the first game and even good things from this past?
Not a bunch. It's all about Florida A&M now, and we know what we've done. We know those things that have gone on. It's about the future now. So we're on about the task now, seeing that we can get this team going for this coming Thursday night.
You lost to the #1 rated team in the country now. What good learning experience did you get from this game?
Well, you get a pretty good evaluation on what the #1 team looks like. You better find some offense in a case like that, because one of the things that happened was turning the football over, put our defense in a bind. It really got us to the point where I think we wore them down to a frazzle. You better be able to match them at least somewhat offense for offense, because if not, then they'll simply wear your defense down. That was the big lesson that we learned in that game.
Coach, you had a chance to look at film on Florida A&M. What concerns you about Florida A&M?
Well, FAMU seems to have a pretty stout defensive front. Even in the South Florida game, it was real close into the late in the second quarter. They were going tit for tat with those guys, so it's a pretty safe bet that they got some confidence in the fact that they can pretty much stop anybody with their defense. They are maybe sounder than I've seen them before. They've been a really radical style of defense the last few odd years, and they've been blitzing from everywhere, and it was almost impossible to tell where you were getting some of that stuff from. Whereas now this team is a good, solid, fundamental football team now, and with the personnel they've got, that scares you a little bit. Offensively, Alex Woods is an offensive guy, and they scored points on all of these teams that they played, and you could see signs of the fact that they had some real good ideas about some things. So I think they got a chance to be a pretty good football team if they continue to improve. Like the rest of us, everybody's at this point still trying to just try to get a little bit better every day, and they seem to be doing that themselves. They kick the ball very, very well. They've got 2 of the better kickers. Their entire kicking operations staffed by some really highly competent personnel. Their punter, their kicker, their long snapper, all those kind of people. I don't even think anybody's even going after their punt, because it's bang back there to her and off in in a flash, and he hits it really well. So I think they got great personnel there. So they got a well-rounded team that's just kind of trying to find its way right now. And it'll be a pretty safe bet that that their idea here will be to make their start in their first conference game.
When you look at the play of York, despite the loss, he got off to a slow start, but at the end he kind of found his way a little bit.
Yeah, you can tell he's a talent, and you can tell he's a freshman. Both of those things are painfully honest. The tough part about it is he could stand about another maybe month of just kind of sitting back and maybe playing a little bit here, a little bit there, and kind of watching the game a little bit. But we don't have that ability right now. We've got to go on about the task of playing it right now. So he's having to learn on the job. Some of the turnovers we had, two situations where we had turnovers that I would have liked to have given him a little bit better chance to do something a little bit different. You feel somewhat responsible for making sure you make it friendly enough to his style of abilities that you give him a better than average chance of being successful. It's what it's all about at this point. But I think he's done some real good things. He scored. He gave us an opportunity to score more points than we did last year against Coastal. Now we go into the half, way behind. So I don't know exactly what their intensity was coming into the second half, but at the same time, you see some bright spots, and you think you can, continue to build on what he's done to get him to the point that he can get to be a good quarterback.
After the game, he kind of took some responsibility with offense, saying they put the defense in bad situations and bad field position, giving Coastal a really good field position. That's good for him to take that responsibility, especially as a true freshman.
And he's a mature kid that way, so that doesn't surprise you. It's probably more the entire offense though than him in particular. We put the ball on the ground. We did some things. We made a couple other kinds of errors that gave us some tough field position. We didn't particularly do a good job in our return game. Our punt kickoff return stuff was all kind of convoluted, out of sorts. And they did a good job of getting us deeper in our territory for more than one time around. So they continuously kept us backed up. It kind of reminds me of what we try to do to teams to a certain degree. Sometimes when you can be a little bit dominant, you get a team pinned down in their own end. They can't get out. They keep putting it back, and it keeps being a short field. It's not a good feeling, and you can kind of see it slipping away from it that way. But at the same time, it was a number of things that caused us to lose field position. The offense is not the only one.
How much does a game like that help the coaching staff get the attention of the players? And they all want to get better, but they know after that game they've got to improve on some things.
Well, I guarantee you, it established a sense of urgency that you don't necessarily get. When somebody just tells you, that you've had a mistake or two, you get a chance to really see what can be the worst case scenario that way. And that probably was that particular situation. So, yeah, I think we've got a little bit better attention to our detail and that kind of stuff at this point. Tell you one thing for sure, and that is that they now know what you got to be a good-looking football team. You can see what level of execution you got to have, on both sides of the ball to play at that level. I think it gives us something to mimic and something to aspire to be like.
Do you remind them that all the conference goals and all that's still out there and still attainable?
All that kind of stuff we all know is still in play, and that's the goal at this point, to continue to win all the games we can win. We don't necessarily try to get into try to win a championship or that kind of stuff at this early part of the year. You get into trying to be the very best you can each day, trying to win each game you can. It's kind of like the gamble. You count up at the end of the deal and see where you're at. Hopefully it's on the good side of things, and you take what you got and deal with it.
Any injuries to report?
We still in defense that we got beat up pretty good. Hargraves is a concern. He's got a little bit of a hip pointer. Philip Henry has got a little bit of a hip side kind of deal. He's got kind of hit in the ribs a little bit. He's bruised a little bit. I think Antonio's gonna be okay. His was mostly heat, kinds of related dehydration. Got IV during the game, but he seems to be doing better. Pauling, I think, is going to be out for maybe a couple weeks. He's got a high ankle sprain. He's got an ankle sprain. I don't know how high it is, but he's got an ankle sprain. And Jalen Kusar has a little bit of an ankle injury. Dondre Lewis-Freeman has been nursing an ankle for the last, I guess, maybe a couple weeks or so. And the injury to Hargraves actually occurred in the Arkansas Pine Bluff game, and he thought he could just kind of play through it. But, it was at a point where it really irritated him during the game, so he ended up coming out the fourth quarter. But we are hoping that he'll be ready to go and pretty much full speed by Thursday.
When you talk about the injuries, you have some young kids